Molt bé, doncs bona tarda a tothom. Benvingudes i benvinguts a aquesta cloenda del quart cicle de l'Observatori d'Ètica en Intel·ligència Artificial de Catalunya, el Cicle OEIAC, que, com sabeu, és un dels pilars de l'Estratègia d'Intel·ligència Artificial de Catalunya i que avui tanca aquest cicle de seminaris sobre ètica, impacte social i compliment legal a l'Ateneu Barcelonès, i aquí agraïm que ens aculli per aquesta ocasió ben especial. Estem molt contents de tenir-vos aquí presents, a tots vosaltres, en aquesta cloenda i també que ens acompanyi la directora general de Societat Digital de la Generalitat de Catalunya, la Sandra Ruiz Peralta, i el vicerector de Projectes Estratègics i Internacionalització de la Universitat de Girona, en Josep Calbó, que ens adreçaran a continuació unes paraules de benvinguda i a posteriori donarem inici a aquest seminari. D'acord? Gràcies.
Bona tarda a tothom. És un honor donar-vos la benvinguda a la sessió de cloenda del quart cicle de seminaris de l'Observatori d'Ètica en Intel·ligència Artificial de Catalunya. I és especialment significatiu fer-ho aquí, a l'Ateneu Barcelonès, un espai emblemàtic per a la reflexió i l'intercanvi de coneixement. Amb el títol Ètica, impacte i compliment legal, aquest cicle ens ha permès abordar temes de gran rellevància, com ara l'avaluació de l'impacte sobre els drets fonamentals, les tendències i reflexions entorn dels drets humans en el context de la IA, els biaixos algorítmics i la privadesa de les dades i l'ús de la IA en les infraestructures digitals. Avui tenim l'oportunitat de tancar aquest recorregut amb una reflexió fonamental de la mà de la doctora Abeba Birhane, que ens parlarà sobre el conjunt de dades a gran escala. Vull aprofitar aquest moment per felicitar i agrair a la Universitat de Girona per la seva excel·lent tasca en l'organització d'aquest cicle. Han aconseguit reunir ponents d'un altíssim nivell, tant d'aquí com de l'àmbit internacional, i amb les seves aportacions han enriquit el debat i ens han ajudat a aprofundir en les consideracions ètiques, en com les consideracions ètiques poden tant inspirar com desafiar les normatives vigents. Des de la Secretaria de Polítiques Digitals, a través de l'Estratègia d'Intel·ligència Artificial de Catalunya, treballem per posicionar Catalunya com un pol de referència internacional en la recerca, la innovació, captació del talent, la transferència tecnològica, l'acceleració d'empreses emergents i millora de la competitivitat en l'àmbit de la IA. Volem liderar no només en termes d'avenços tecnològics, sinó també en el compromís de garantir una intel·ligència artificial fiable i èticament responsable. Per això, en el marc de l'Estratègia Catalunya AI, l'Observatori d'Ètica en Intel·ligència Artificial de Catalunya va liderar la redacció d'un manifest per promoure la IA fiable, que la setmana passada va ser signat per 14 governs regionals d'arreu del món. A més, l'Observatori ha desplegat el model PIO, Principis, Indicadors i Observables, una eina d'autoavaluació basada en una llista de comprovació, checklist, que permet a qualsevol organització, pública o privada, revisar les seves solucions amb IA compleixen els estàndards ètics i legals. Però no ens quedem només amb aquesta eina. Volem anar més enllà i acompanyar les organitzacions en la comprensió i aplicació de les implicacions ètiques i legals del desenvolupament i l'ús de solucions basades en IA. Amb això el que us demano és que continuem treballant plegats per fer de la intel·ligència artificial una força impulsora d'innovació i progrés i que, en definitiva, contribueixi a millorar la qualitat de vida de les persones. Moltes gràcies per la vostra presència i participació.
Bé, bona tarda, directora general, Albert, director de l'OEIAC, doctora Birhane, amics i amigues. Normalment, quan estic en una salutació de benvinguda a un acte, dic benvinguts a Girona. Això avui no ho puc dir, avui he de dir benvinguts a Girona, però en un acte organitzat des de la Universitat de Girona. Benvinguts a Barcelona per un acte organitzat per la UDG, per la Universitat de Girona. I això és prou rellevant i per això vull destacar-ho. Destacar que la Universitat de Girona moltes activitats de les que té, i en particular amb l'OEIAC, té una voluntat de produir amb la seva activitat el que en diem un impacte real, que les coses que fem, el coneixement que creem, els estudiants que formem, etc., acabin tenint conseqüències reals, impacte real en el que en diem l'entorn, i aquest entorn, encara que evidentment ens focalitzem molt en l'entorn gironí, en molts casos va més enllà i evidentment la Universitat de Girona és una universitat catalana i per tant pretén tenir impacte a tot el país. És per això que, en aquest cas, l'OEIAC, l'Observatori d'Ètica en Intel·ligència Artificial de Catalunya, és això, és l'Observatori d'Ètica en Intel·ligència Artificial de Catalunya, i per tant té la voluntat i la missió d'aportar aquestes mirades de la vessant o l'impacte o les conseqüències socials, legals, ètiques, etc., de l'adopció de la intel·ligència artificial a nivell de tot Catalunya. És una contribució que volem fer, com dic, des de la UDG, una contribució que algú podria qualificar de modesta, però crec que s'ha de qualificar d'imprescindible a l'estratègia catalana. Som l'OEIAC un dels 4 pilars, a part del de recerca, del d'adopció, diguéssim, o transferència, doncs l'OEIAC és un dels 4 pilars de l'estratègia i ens hi sentim molt a gust, sent aquest pilar dedicat o enfocat a analitzar, a reflexionar i a divulgar les qüestions no tecnològiques, o menys tecnològiques, les qüestions de les conseqüències o els impactes socials, legals, ètics de l'aplicació de l'ús de la intel·ligència artificial. I com és que la UDG, que la Universitat de Girona, ha arribat a aquest punt, o va arribar a aquest punt, perquè ja fa 4 anys que hi som? Doncs, en molt bona part, com a conseqüència d'aquest capteniment, d'aquesta idea que la UDG es va plantejar que en tot el seu treball volia implantar la idea que els problemes, els reptes, les necessitats socials del nostre entorn requereixen mirades diverses, visions que no siguin les més òbvies, diguéssim, i que en qualsevol problema que ens trobem, i tant si l'ataquem des de la recerca o des de la formació o des de qualsevol, l'hem de mirar des de molts punts de vista diferents. En aquest sentit, la UDG és una universitat relativament petita comparada amb la de Barcelona o amb l'Autònoma, 15.000 estudiants, però que precisament això la posa potser en avantatge, perquè com que al mateix temps de ser relativament petita és transversal, conté coneixement, expertesa en gairebé tots els àmbits de coneixement, des de l'enginyeria fins al dret, la medicina i l'educació, les ciències experimentals i les ciències socials com l'economia o com té tot l'àmbit, gairebé tot el ventall. Doncs això vol dir que ens coneixem relativament bé els diferents investigadors i és més fàcil potser organitzar estructures que tinguin això, que tinguin l'aportació de mirades diferents, d'òptiques diferents en un mateix problema. Això ho vam sintetitzar en el nostre pla estratègic, que l'anomenem, o el titulem, pla estratègic, la suma d'intel·ligències, amb el sentit de que sumant intel·ligències, sumant la intel·ligència natural de persones que venen d'àmbits diferents, òptiques diferents, mirades diferents, també sumant, per què no, l'aportació de la tecnologia, en aquest cas de la intel·ligència artificial, a la intel·ligència natural, treballant col·laborativament, aprofitant la intel·ligència col·laborativa, doncs els resultats d'aplicar aquesta manera de fer a qualsevol repte han de ser en principi millors que fer-ho d'una manera molt més monolítica, podríem dir. Per tant, fa uns anys vam arribar a l'acord amb la Generalitat, que s'ha anat mantenint al llarg del temps i que per tant també agraïm a la Generalitat el suport que ha anat donant a l'Observatori d'Ètica, que està, com dic, físicament a Girona, dirigit per un professor de la Universitat de Girona, però que té aquesta ambició i aquesta voluntat i aquesta intenció de servir a tot Catalunya i a tota l'estratègia catalana d'intel·ligència artificial. Doncs això, fa 4 anys que estem treballant amb això, molts ja la coneixeu per diferents motius. L'OEIAC vol això, vol aportar la mirada ètica, la mirada social, la mirada legal a la intel·ligència artificial en general, diguéssim, en definitiva una mirada responsable, o sigui, per una IA responsable, i per això ha fet ja, diguéssim, hi ha alguns resultats, com un que ha esmentat ara la directora general, aquesta eina de PIO, d'avaluació, d'autoavaluació dels diferents algoritmes o diferents eines d'intel·ligència artificial, però fa altres coses, entre les quals, i important, és tota l'activitat de divulgació també que fa al voltant d'aquestes visions i de tots els aspectes de la intel·ligència artificial. Estem al quart cicle de seminaris i, per tant, ja aquesta activitat de divulgació ja va generant, diguéssim, un repositori de material prou interessant i un cop més arribem al final amb una xerrada també que segur que ja anticipo que serà interessant i brillant amb aquesta intenció de l'activitat divulgativa de l'OEIAC, que la fa a través dels seminaris, la fa a través d'una presència important a les xarxes, la fa també generant materials educatius per estudiants de nivells de la secundària, per exemple. Per tant, una sèrie d'activitats relacionades amb la divulgació, la disseminació del coneixement crític de la intel·ligència artificial. Bé, només volia dir ben bé això, una breu introducció pels que no ens coneixíeu i perquè sapigueu un cop més això, que la Universitat de Girona, com una universitat més del país, catalana, encara que habitualment fem les coses des de Girona, també volem tenir impacte a tot Catalunya. Gràcies a la Generalitat per donar suport, per confiar en nosaltres en aquest observatori i gràcies, evidentment, a tot el públic que esteu aquí per escoltar la conferenciant. Thank you, Abeba, for coming here to give your speech and to let us know all your experiences in this field. Thank you. Gràcies.
Molt bé, moltíssimes gràcies, directora general, vicerector, públic. Aquest és el quart cicle, com comentàvem, de l'OEIAC, el quart cicle de seminaris, i hem comptat amb 4 seminaris fins a data d'avui, i amb la participació de persones de la talla d'Alessandro Mantelero, de Jamila Venturini, de la Sílvia Casacoberta i de Roger Pujades. I avui, per finalitzar aquest cicle, comptem ni més ni menys que amb la inestimable contribució de la professora, investigadora i activista doctora Abeba Birhane. La doctora Abeba Birhane investiga el comportament humà, també el que s'anomena els sistemes socials i la intel·ligència artificial des del punt de vista més responsable, els seus usos ètics, i el treball per la qual està ben posicionada, ben reconeguda i ha aparegut recentment fins i tot en aquesta llista prou interessant com és la de Wired UK o la llista de Time, com una de les persones més influents en el camp de la intel·ligència artificial. Per tant, estem davant d'una persona coneguda des d'un punt de vista acadèmic, però també des d'un punt de vista de tot allò que envolta la tecnologia. La professora Birhane també forma part del Consell Assessor d'Intel·ligència Artificial del secretari general de les Nacions Unides, Antonio Guterres, i també del recentment convocat Consell Assessor d'Intel·ligència Artificial vull dir d'Irlanda, d'acord? Per tant, estem davant d'una persona que té una capacitat d'influència també des del punt de vista de política pública. La recerca de la doctora Birhane és àmpliament reconeguda per explorar el que són els reptes i els inconvenients de l'automatització del comportament humà mitjançant un examen crític dels models computacionals actualment existents, a través del que es coneix com auditories de conjunts de dades a gran escala. I, de fet, en molt poc temps, les seves publicacions han esdevingut com molt seminals, en el sentit que tenim publicacions a llocs que són de gran impacte, com la revista Patterns, Algorithmic Injustices Towards Relational Ethics, o publicacions d'Artificial Life, The Impossibility of Automating Ambiguity, o altres més recents com The Unseen Black Faces of Algorithms, que bàsicament és un tema que, com podeu imaginar, està molt relacionat amb la part dels biaixos. I, de fet, podem dir que estem davant d'una persona que és molt prolífica des del punt de vista acadèmic, però també des del punt de vista de fer les coses d'avançar en això que s'anomena ja responsable. Potser ens diu alguna cosa sobre el nou laboratori que encapçalarà en breu, que té a veure amb AI Accountability, i, per tant, li donem no tan sols la benvinguda, sinó també l'encoratgem que trepitgi fort en aquest camp, perquè bona falta ens fa. A la xerrada d'avui, la doctora Abeba Birhane ens explicarà com, a mesura que els sistemes d'intel·ligència artificial impregnen aquesta vida quotidiana que tenim, hi ha una necessitat que aquests sistemes siguin més robustos, més justos, més precisos, i, de fet, ja sabem que s'ha convertit tot això en un tema d'urgent importància. No és un tema que ens hauria de preocupar d'aquí 5 anys, sinó ens ha de preocupar ara. I, en aquest sentit, podríem dir que ens presentarà, sembla ser, un treball que posa en relleu nombroses preocupacions que estan derivades especialment dels conjunts de dades a gran escala, dels sistemes d'intel·ligència artificial que s'utilitzen per per tractar aquestes dades a gran escala, però també revisant alguns dels enfocaments actuals, tant pel que són les millores incrementals, això de força bruta, que és la que veiem principalment actualment a través de la computació, com per impulsar canvis estructurals, que és una cosa que és evidentment benvinguda. Per tant, benvinguda i welcome to the OEIAC Seminar Series, Professor Birhane. I might just say the floor is yours, and I hope you have a good time here in Barcelona, or Girona, if you can say.
Thank you so much for such a great and extensive introduction. Even though I don't speak Spanish, I picked up on some of the words, so thank you so much. Hi everyone, it's great to be here. It's such a privilege. Thank you all so much for coming to listen to me. So we will talk about artificial intelligence and the ethical and also technical concerns that arise from it. So first, we all hear about artificial intelligence, everywhere in the newspaper, the media. You hear about it on TV, on the radio. Researchers are also hyped around artificial intelligence. Regulators are paying so much attention to AI and so on. However, what AI is and what exactly it refers to and how it can be defined remains very difficult to nail down. So AI has become one of the most contested terms with no clear definition and with no clear consensus as to what it refers. So we will start this talk by kind of looking at what artificial intelligence is. We are not trying to define it, but we are trying to look at different perspectives about what AI is. So the first thing we will hear about is we will go back to the fathers of artificial intelligence that coined the term back in the 1950s and 60s, 1956 to be exact. So we will hear a video, an interview that was actually carried out in 1973. So that was John McCarthy. He coined the term back in 1956. So as you can see here, it really, the decisive moment for coming up with the term was to get funding, really. Even to this day, if you have artificial intelligence in your grant proposal, you are much more likely to get funding than if you use, other much more precise terms. So what I wanted to communicate here is that the term, a lot of artificial intelligence is, it's a marketing term rather than reflecting, what the AI systems or what, the computational systems themselves do. So to kind of give an overview of what AI is, of course, AI is not just one thing, it's so many things, and even with an AI, there are so many different subfields, NLP deals with language, computer vision deals with images, videos, and so on, robotics. But even within that, you have, classification systems, you have AI predictive systems that make predictive models. And recently, you have generative models. We've had generative models for a while, but over the past 2 years, it has become mainstream. So these are systems that generate new content. I say new in quotation mark because whether it's new is debatable. But these use kind of new techniques. They are diffusion models for image generation, and you have transformer architectures underlying a lot of large language models such as ChatGPT. And what unites them all is, at the end of the day, is what these systems do is cluster patterns through optimization processes from massive amounts of data. So if you build your architecture, you feed it, several thousands, millions, and these days even billions of tokens. That's how much data is needed to maintain the current AI systems we have, especially the large ones. And these systems are really good at identifying patterns and clustering similarities and differences together through optimization processes. For diffusion and transformer architectures, we have a mechanism known as self-attention that reiteratively, weighs in, various components, but we won't get into the detail of that. So what I want to say is a lot of these systems are, especially generative systems, what they do, what they are really good at is just, clustering, memorizing data, memorizing patterns from patterns and associations from training data. So as a result, generative systems have been dubbed as stochastic parrots. Has anybody read the stochastic parrots paper? Show of hands. Oh, good. So I'm preaching to the choir already. And yeah, they've been dubbed as stochastic parrots, the great pretenders, the bullshit generators as well, because AI systems like ChatGPT, they can generate anything. You give them prompts, they can generate anything, but they are not truth generators. They don't necessarily generate facts. They don't necessarily generate truth. So for these reasons, they've also been called, glorified copy-paste machines. I might have contributed to that. And also, so what machine learning does is just, again, classify and find patterns from these systems. They've also been called, plagiarizer information synthesis systems. I'm just throwing in memes just for a little bit of fun. And AI systems, because they use historical data, because they need massive amounts of data, and that data mostly comes from the World Wide Web. As a result, that data is historical data. It reflects phenomena or things that have already happened. So when you build predictive systems, or when you build any AI systems, it doesn't have to be even predictive. Even generative systems, classification systems, they are necessarily backward-looking, meaning that the future they predict resembles the past, or it looks like the past. So as a result, they kind of bring in a predetermined future that resembles the past, that looks like the past. And these days, AI is everywhere. Governments are trying to push AI, to bring in AI into all kinds of public services, trying to automate all kinds of human relations. AI companies are constantly pushing in AI into all kinds of domains. And unfortunately, people have come, especially people that are developing and selling AI systems, and also government bodies, NGOs, and so on, that are trying to cut costs. AI has become the solution to every possible problem. of course, AI is not magic; it doesn't solve everything, but the general perception has come to be this. And sometimes the AI that's really pushed in onto us is unnecessary, is unwanted AI. And I'll give you example. If you know, on your devices, on your mobile devices, on your computers, you know, big corporations like Google and Microsoft are kind of pushing, you know, the use of generative systems or other AI infrastructures, even though they are unreliable. So one example of AI that's really pushed into the public that's unnecessary is the Google AI overview. So if you use Google as a search engine, when you look up something at the top of the result these days, I don't use Google, by the way. It's better if you can use other search engines. But at the top of any query you put into Google, you have what's known as the AI overview. So Google's AI systems will summarize information that's out there, and they will give you highlights as answers to your query. And as I said, generative systems are unreliable, inherently unreliable. They suffer from what's known as hallucination. It's a problematic term, meaning that they produce seemingly fluent sentence, but it doesn't exist. It's fabricated. It's fabricated, or it's totally incorrect, or it simply doesn't exist. This is why generative systems, one of the reasons why generative systems are unreliable. Yet still, companies like Google are really pushing you know, generative systems to summarize and synthesize information, and as a result, we have this. Just to highlight some fun examples that also show how unreliable but also dangerous AI summaries can be. So, smoking while pregnant, and as you can see here, Google's AI overview says, doctors recommend smoking 2 cigarettes per day during pregnancy. And how many rocks should I eat per day? And apparently at least 1 small rock a day. If I run off a cliff, can I stay in the air so long as I don't look down? And apparently Google overview says, yes, you can stay in the air as long as you keep running and don't look down. And if gravity didn't exist. So, as I mentioned, AI systems, so most of the techniques that, you know, AI that are pushing the AI revolution are not new. You know, we've had these for decades, since the 60s, 70s, 80s, and so on. But what really made the AI revolution possible is the internet, because then you can harvest massive amounts of data from everything, and data is the backbone of AI systems. The availability, I say again availability in quotation marks, because sometimes the way data is harvested is borderline illegal. But it's the, you know, data sets, the availability of all kinds of data is what made AI possible, the AI revolution possible, and what made AI really ubiquitous. Unfortunately, you know, every day massive amounts of data is harvested from us through the devices we carry, but also, like, as you walked from your home or from your work to here, your faces and your movements have probably been captured by all kinds of sensors, by all kinds of AI systems. That data then feeds, you know, into various kinds of decision making. But this pipeline from data harvesting to AI building and then, pushing out these AI systems into daily life is kind of obscured, and sometimes on purpose. So let's walk through this. So, as I said, thousands of data points are extracting data, personal data, about our bodies, about our behavior, about our work, about our social lives, and so on. This is an example. I use an Android phone, and as I said, I don't really use Google. I try to avoid the entire Google infrastructure. I use DuckDuckGo as my search engine, and DuckDuckGo has an extension. It's actually on beta at the moment. An extension for Android that shows you, who is tracking you and what kind of information they are extracting. And this is just an example. By accessing a website that uses some kind of Google infrastructure in the back end, massive amounts of data are being extracted. So I think this came from, I went into some kind of website, and then my DuckDuckGo extension gives me notification that so many companies are extracting data from me, and one of them is Google. And as you can see, Google extracts, all kinds of information, including the city I'm in, GPS coordinates, my gender, my postal code, my first name, last name, and so on, and many more other data. We are not even aware of, data extraction happening in the background. And this data is precious. It's valuable. It's either by big companies like Google, it serves as training data for AI systems. But also there are so many third-party data brokers that aggregate this data and sell it to those that build AI systems. And a lot of this data that's extracted from us is never a single purpose. It's aggregated and it's used for all kinds of purposes. As I said, this entire data harvesting, AI building, and pushing the AI back into society, this pipeline is purposefully obfuscated through technical jargon, through doublespeak. Also, there is a lot of dual-use narrative, especially within the field of computer vision, where a lot of the reason is that it's dual-use. It can be used for good or it can be used for bad. So that serves as a kind of as a pushback from asking for transparency or from asking critical questions. And these AI technologies, as I said, then affect people, whether you are asking for a loan, whether you are asking for a mortgage, whether you are applying for a job, whether you are applying for some college, university. Most of these organizations and companies, institutions use some kind of AI to assess. In hiring, for example, a lot of, we don't have the exact number because companies that use AI systems to sift through CVs, they are not transparent about it. But the suspicion is almost all large companies, especially in the Western world, use some kind of AI systems to sift through CVs before it gets to a human that assesses it. That means, from hiring to education, if you go to the bank looking for a loan, all information about you will be put through some kind of AI that will then assess, that will then determine whether you are fit to get a loan or not. So what I'm trying to say here is that in everything we do, as more and more AI systems are involved, the kind of, harmless sounding AI extraction comes back to have an impact in our lives, in our daily lives. So I want to delve a little bit into the dual use because it's a very common narrative that again allows, you know, that gives the impression that AI can be used for good or bad. So in order to do that, myself and my colleagues looked into the field of computer vision, and we looked at we looked at publications from the biggest computer vision venue, CVPR. It's actually one of the top publication venues of any journal, one of the top 5, alongside Nature, Science, PNAS, and so on. What we wanted to do is how computer vision research feeds into real-world application, and where exactly does computer vision research end up in the real world? How is it used? So in order to do that, we looked at both computer vision research publications and patents. Computer vision has one of the highest percentage patents filed based on the research. So we traced from research to application by looking at computer vision research papers and patents that are filed based on this research. And I won't bore you with with the details. We analyzed over 40,000 documents. We also did both qualitative and quantitative analysis. So we also actually read about 200 research papers and patents in detail, kind of extracting information about, what kind of data, for what purpose, and so on. So here is the summary of our findings. So as you can see, almost all computer vision research and application that follows from it are used for surveillance. So within surveillance, we've categorized it into different kinds of surveillance. You have surveillance of human body parts. So that is like that surveillance that targets, facial expression, eye movement, and so on. Fingerprint nails, finger prints, and so on. You have surveillance of human bodies. This is, surveillance of, gait recognition. This is analyzing, how a person moves and so on. And you have surveillance of human spaces. So all the CCTV, AI-powered CCTV cameras in town squares, in apartment blocks, and so on. Or even, the AI-powered vacuum cleaners that roam around your house. They are gathering data and mapping your living square. And as you can see, most of computer vision ends up being used in surveillance, and these are the kind of surveillances that happen. So we also looked at, the evolution of the field over decades, because, back in the 1980s and 1990s, CVPR is one of the longest standing conferences, not just in computer vision, but in general. As you can see here in green or in teal, back in the 1990s, computer vision research was not so focused on surveillance itself. It was much more general. It was about indexing, sequencing, identifying, classifying edges, surfaces, and so on. But in 2010s, it has become so focused on actions, on people, and focused on, much more personal spaces, aiding to the surveillance of bodies and so on. Also, we again we traced, the evolution of the field itself. As you can see here, back in the 1990s, under 50% of the entire papers that were published in CVPR, under 50%, most of it was not used in surveillance. So in here, the gray marks, that's the total amount of paper, and the gray is papers that are not used for surveillance, whereas the pink is those that are used in surveillance. So as you can see, in the 1990s, a lot more papers were not about surveillance, whereas only a small proportion was about surveillance. That's changed in the 2010s. About 80% of the total number of papers that were published, about 80% of it was used in surveillance. Also, counting the numbers itself, as you can see in the 1990s, the total number of papers, both targeting both on surveillance and non-surveillance, were kind of equal. But in the 2010s, out of the total number of papers, while the papers that are not about surveillance remained the same in the grayscale, the use of surveillance increased almost 5 times more, as you can see in the purple bar here. Okay, it will get more interesting. I will stop boring you with technical details. So we also looked at which country is producing the most surveillance. As you can see, the United States is at the top, followed by China, the UK, and Germany. The purple and gray show, the total number of papers, while the purple is used in surveillance and the gray is not used in surveillance. So it's not only countries, not only nation states we looked at, we also looked at companies, because companies patent the most, file the most patents. As you can see here, Microsoft by far produces the most surveillance, followed by CMU, MIT, and the Chinese University of Hong Kong. Okay, so this is just to show you how most of the time, if you are an academic, you would be familiar, research and real-world application tend to go, orthogonal, not really crisscrossing. But in this paper, what we tried to do is really map, from research to real-world application. So as you can see here, these are texts extracted from computer vision papers and how that informs patents that then serve in the real world. So as you can see, sometimes the relationship between what the scientific papers propose and what kind of application end up being built is very related. Sometimes you have to really look through the jargon, you have to look through the active obfuscation to really make the connection. So here side by side is computer vision papers and how those papers end up being used in patents. So so as well as the results I showed you, one of the qualitative results is also through the evolution of the field, computer vision has become so good at masking surveillance. Back in the 90s, computer vision researchers would happily admit that their research can be used for surveillance. But now, as surveillance became a dirty word, the field has become so good at using doublespeak and using technical language to hide the fact that it's surveillance. So one of the things we found was that in almost all cases, computer vision researchers classify people as objects. So people are seen as just another item as objects. So humans are referred as objects. But also we've found that, again, these papers would tend to go out of their way to not be transparent about the fact that they are extracting human data and that they are being used for surveillance. So sometimes you would read an entire patent or paper and not know what kind of data they are collecting or what kind of model they are building. But you look at the figures, and then you will see a human figurine. That's how you kind of extrapolate. You have to do the detective work. So all these. As I said, as I showed you in the entire pipeline from data to AI models and those AI models coming back into society, they have all kinds of implications, and some of the known cases are, for example, through this data extraction in the US, for example, a supermarket. By connecting the data, a supermarket figuring out that a teen girl was pregnant before her father even did. Here are the kind of massive amounts of data companies like Facebook collect from you. And this has, on individual level, it has impacts, especially on vulnerable people, because, as I said, it affects, your autonomy, your health, your job, and so on. It's not only individual level, this societal impact. It's also, this kind of surveillance practices also alter the social fabric. For example, before face recognition systems are implemented everywhere, people would go to mass protests, taking comfort in the fact that when there are so many of you, you cannot be singled out and you cannot be punished. But face recognition technology, for example, is changing that. Because these are technologies everywhere, now it's easy for authorities to single you out and punish you. And this has happened in, I don't know if you are following the demonstrations in Kenya. The Kenyan youth have been kind of pushing back and objecting to President Ruto, and the leaders of these demonstrators are just one by one disappearing. Also it's not just Africa. You look at, China, in the US, a lot of encampments against genocide. The leaders of these encampments, you might have seen, wearing masks so that they are not identified by these systems. But also, these technologies are assisting in punishing dissent. So this kind of seemingly harmless data harvesting practice and building models from that data does have dire consequences. And in the extreme case, we are also seeing how AI systems are used to fuel genocide. So currently, the Israel Army, IDF, has, so far we know of, 3 AI systems: Lavender, Where's Daddy, and the Gospel. So for example, what Lavender does is create a kill list. So based on your digital traces, based on your connections, for example, if you are in the same WhatsApp group as someone who might be suspected of being a Hamas militant, or if you are changing address every few months, or if you are changing your phone, your hardware constantly, if you are within the same social network as other people suspected of IDF, all these are used as a proxy to put you on the kill list. And based on this machine learning system, then the IDF, the Israeli IDF, I highly recommend reading this paper. It it's a very detailed. It also contains testimonies from IDF personnel themselves, and they would take about 20 seconds. The human will take about 20 seconds to look at the list before they shoot. So that's not enough, enough human in the loop, enough human evaluation. And yeah, so this is just to show you that in the most extreme example, this, data harvesting AI systems do not only have impacts on individuals, but also on social systems. And they, as we are seeing currently, they really fuel genocide. So, so we've seen that, these AI systems can be used for, really catastrophic purposes. There is also another element about AI. This goes back to what I said about, blindly trusting AI to solve all kinds of problems or to do all kinds of things for us. And here we see applications of AI that really is pseudoscience. So in this case, what we see is using AI to identify pedophiles. I mean, things like, being a pedophile, or being innocent or trustworthy, or even your gender or your sexual identity. These are not things you can read of faces or facial data or video data. Internal cognitive states cannot be read from external characteristics. But that doesn't stop current AI builders and the field itself from building AI systems that really have no scientific basis. So in a sense, we really are, replicating long debunked pseudoscience such as physiognomy, in some cases even eugenics. So this is taken from the 1940s eugenics books, and what we are doing is really resuscitating pseudoscience, but now we have shiny machine learning tools and mathematics that give the veneer of objectivity. So coming back to generative systems, and as I said earlier, generative systems are extremely unreliable, and we've seen some of the examples through Google's AI overview. But I want to mention also another larger problem, which is that as generative systems become accessible, show of hand if you've used a generative system to generate, image or text. Okay. Yeah, so most of you some of you probably, played around with ChatGPT. So what this is doing is really polluting the information ecosystem. And because there is no way to verify, if a piece of text or an image is generated from generative systems, or is written by a human person, or a photograph of a real event, it has become so problematic to keep the information system we have factually checked. So as a result, organizations such as Wikipedia have to assemble teams that clean up this AI slope that is polluting the World Wide Web. And similarly, we have systems, especially within academia, that trace and track the evolution of words used by people. So for words, for example, we have Word Freak. It again traces the evolution of words that's used by humans, but that project has to be stopped, has to be scrapped after 2021 because AI slope or AI generated text has polluted the World Wide Web. We don't know if these words are used by humans or if they are AI generated. The same with book indexing. We have a system called the N-gram. So the N-gram traces the kind of words used by people in books. And that program, that N-gram, is no longer useful. And when Google is asked, this is from investigative journalists, when this information was brought to Google and when Google was asked if they would remove AI-generated books because it is again polluting or it's again making systems such as the N-gram unusable, their response is they will continue to evaluate their approach as the world of book publishing evolves. This means that they are not doing anything about it. And there are some benefits to generative systems, and one of the most particular areas is it's a rock bed for fraudsters and for people that are trying to game the system. So I thought this is just a fun example. So let's go back to data. As I said, all kinds of data is harvested from us. That's then used at a massive scale. Also, if you are an academic, show of hands if you are an academic. So most of your publication is probably used as a training material by some company or by multiple companies. Because publishers such as Wiley, Elsevier, actually most of them are entering agreements with big companies such as OpenAI or Google, contractual agreements that would allow them to use academic writing as training data. Unfortunately, without knowledge or consent of the scholars themselves, of those that are authors of this themselves. So I am an auditor, and most of what I do is examine training data sets, the quality of them, how are concepts represented, and so on. But unfortunately, a lot of AI companies that are building AI and that are making it available for everybody, data is a very sensitive issue. None of them are transparent about their data. They don't show their data, so we don't know where it comes from or what it looks like. And there is no legal requirement that requires them to do that. So we don't know the kind of data systems like ChatGPT are being trained on. But we have open source versions of the data that academics like me are investigating, that are auditing and looking into. And unfortunately, a lot of this training data really encodes, societal norms, biases, and all kinds of unjust behavior. So here is just a quick snapshot from data we audited back in 2022, a data set called the Line 400 million. It contains 4 million image and text pairs. So here is the snapshot of the portal with the prompt African, and here is the first set of images that shows you with the word African, and compare that with European. You can see how a lot of cliched stereotypes are encoded in how identities, cultures are represented in these data sets. And the problems with datasets necessarily translate to problems with models. So a lot of models still, there are so many evaluations coming out, still really encode and exacerbate these stereotypes and biases. So this is generated using the model DALL-E. The first image is using the prompt emotional author, and the second one is intellectual author. Again, as you can see, emotional author, it gives you all images of all women, again, encoding and exacerbating societally held stereotypes. And this one is generated with stable diffusion. As you can see, the first one is with the prompt African people at work, and the second one with European people at work. I think the image says more than I could describe. So these biases and stereotypes, they are not always very easy to spot. So as well as, covert, as well as overt biases and stereotypes, these systems also encode covert, indirect and very nuanced biases. So as you can see here, this is a paper that came out very recently. What they evaluated here is how the same sentence, but with different dialects, one with standard American English and the other one with African American dialect, and how these sentences would be rated. So the first one, I'm so happy when I wake up from a bad dream because they feel too real, and a person who says this, and a lot of these large language models tell us, intelligent and brilliant. The second one, I'd be so happy when I wake up from a bad dream because they be feeling too real. This is an African American dialect, and this sentence, a person who says this is scored as lazy, stupid, and dirty. So what I wanted to communicate here is when we even remove direct and overt bias, covert and nuanced racism and sexism still remains encoded within these systems, and we are still uncovering the infinite ways that these systems can be problematic. So regulation, as I said, regulators are paying a lot of attention, and again, unfortunately, we do have some regulations in place, and those are important, but still the conversation, this is actually climate. So this, they don't go near enough. For example, in terms of the climate impact of AI systems. Not just AI systems, particularly generative systems. So generative AI requires massive amounts of energy. So the GPUs, the data centers that are necessary to maintain these AI large systems require massive amounts of energy. Compared to traditional AI, if you just input a query on Google search about how much glass of water should I drink per day, and compare that, the exact same query, and if you use the generative model to generate an answer, you are using 10 times more energy compared to a traditional AI. And in countries like Ireland, the amount of energy to sustain, these AI centers, these data centers, is more than the total amount of energy required to run all households across the island of Ireland, just to give you, an estimation. And this is based on data that AI companies themselves give. A recent report has come out and said companies like Microsoft, Google, Meta, and Apple have actually underreported their energy use by about 662%. And this is before we even get to the massive amounts of water, it has to also be clean water, that is required to cool down data centers. and the water need again is growing. Even within the last year, from 2022 to 2023, the water consumption has grown in double digits, 17% for Google, 22.5% for Microsoft, and 17% for Meta. So I will end here, but maybe with a little bit of a positive note, because I know I've said a lot of critical stuff, but unfortunately that's the reality. But what I want to end with is that all this work, all this data, especially the work I showed in computer vision, it's not something to be negative about. It's not something that is depressing. Well, it kind of is, but we have to use it as something positive. Knowing that, having the data, having the clarity, having understanding should be the first step to challenge these systems. It should be seen as knowledge that is useful to change the system, to dismantle the system, to push back against this system. So I hope you take something helpful and positive from this. And yeah, I will end here. Thank you.
A real pleasure to listen to your talk, and especially both the positive and the negative message, if you like, the critical message, I would say. So now it's time for questions, from the audience. Perhaps algú té alguna pregunta o comentari, alguna puntualització. Sí, endavant.
Ara. Hi, thank you very much for sharing your wonderful work. My name is Judith. I work on the Catalan Federation of NGOs, and we are trying to push like some civil society participation in all this governance of AI. And I have a question that it's, what will be your advice to NGOs and about all this topic? Because there is a lot of challenge. We have the climate challenge, the surveillance challenge, all this. Yeah. And how can we make a real push to put centers in the right of the development of AI? Because
So NGOs that are trying to adopt AI, that are trying to automate.
No, we are trying to advocate for human rights-centered AI. Yeah.
It's really important. NGOs like that are really a critical part of the resistance, part of pushing back against harmful AI. I'm not against all AI. Some AI can actually be really useful. Maybe not generative AI. I fail to see, positive uses for that. But yeah, it's you are here, part of the conversation, and depending on the power and authority and resources you have, the more power you have, the more you can change things, the more you can push for change. You use your power to be active, to educate, to communicate, to talk to your people, to talk to your communities. As I said, there is so much misunderstanding around AI. So even having clarity, having clear facts and accurate information about what AI is and is not, what it can and can't do, these are important things that will accumulate to a substantial change. Another thing is, as organized body, as NGOs, you have more visibility to talk to regulators, to talk to policymakers, and again, there is comfort in masses, and use your power to get regulators to bring about positive legislation, positive changes.
Thank you.
So thank you for the nice talk. So is there any, do you think there's any hope in a way? You mentioned regulation or something, or awareness. And what we learned so far, people are aware of climate change, people are aware of data mining with the cookies, and regulations are seen as, I don't know, they say, okay, regulation versus innovation, or something like this.
Yes.
And in the end, it's true. I mean, we all have the cookies, and we just click, okay. Because it's impossible to read, it's impossible to keep track, it's impossible to catch the moment where you say, oh, okay, now they really catch me. So usually you don't give a shit, but maybe you're the victim one day, but you don't care in the daily basis, even if you're educated, even if you know the threats, and even if, so.
I agree. So I'm not a big fan of, so I mean, yes, every individual's awareness around the entire data AI pipeline and every individual's knowledge is important. But I also believe that we shouldn't put all the onus on individuals. As you said, if you are, especially for companies, especially if they are operating within the EU, because of various regulations, you know, the Digital Markets Act, the Digital Services Act, you have now the EU AI Act, companies are required to at least give people's users some option. But as you said, it's obfuscated in predatory designs, in dark designs that really make it easy to just agree to their terms. So it's also the way they design, you know, how we become full agents, how we exercise our autonomy. So it has to, again, go back to, you know, regulations, making companies more explicit and making sure that people have more awareness, people have more options, and making it opting out just as much easy as it is to opt in. So I agree with you. It's a lot of work remains within changing the structure, changing the design and the habit and the practices of AI developers and AI vendors. But again, these companies are massive and they are becoming ever rich, ever more powerful. So it's, you know, it becomes really difficult to get them to do anything. But in my experience, the things that they respond to are public outrage. So for example, when we publish research, often the findings are so outrageous and ridiculous, it shouldn't happen. They catch, you know, the media's attention, then there is public outrage. This leads to some kind of action because, again, tech companies are worried about their company reputation. So that's a reason for them to act. So public outrage and legislation, if they are legally liable for something, then they must oblige. So again, pushing for regulation and more public awareness. I'm afraid those are the most viable routes to, you know, to organize, to, you know, to get together, to build allyship and, fight together.
Thank you. So you talked about your pessimism on generative AI. Mm-hmm. I'm curious about what optimism you have in terms of other practical use cases of AI. Where is it you find that it's helpful and it's also beneficial and it's also good?
AI or generative AI?
No. AI in general.
Okay. Yes, as I said, generative AI is more problematic, more harm, both in terms of environmental destruction, but also, you know, its use cases tend to just serve fraudsters and so on. But in terms of AI, as I said, I want to clarify, I'm not against AI, I'm against bad AI, harmful AI, AI that doesn't work properly. There are so many, you know, use cases for AI. I don't know where to begin, but maybe the general, instead of me listing the positive use cases, maybe I'll say something general, which is that, so
currently, the way AI is developed and deployed is inherently tied with capitalism, capitalist motives. AI companies are developing and selling AI because it makes financial sense, because it makes them a lot of money, a lot of benefit. So the first principle is we have to untangle AI from capitalism. So AI that is built not to maximize profit, but built with the objective of, a given community needs, and if you also look at AI that's deployed within the social space, for example, in law enforcement, AI systems come in as a way to kind of, catch people, as a way to punish people. If you look at recidivism algorithms, for example, what they do is if someone is being released from jail, recidivism algorithms predict how likely you are to recommit crime. And of course, these algorithms are proven to be super racist. But one thing to make AI positive is to flip the objective. Instead of building AI to punish people or to catch people or waiting for them to make a mistake so that you can catch them, one thing to do is redefine criminal behavior as, instead of, petty theft or whatever, redefine it to target, say, white-collar crime. Then your target is like, CEOs, or business executives that are taking advantage of everyday people. Then you are doing social good with AI. So these kind of flipping objectives and building AI, not just in general for everybody, but for specific purposes. For example, in the space of climate change and CO2 emission, we can use AI to document. To document the phenomena itself. We can use AI to get more accurate information from big companies that are emitting the most CO2, and then we can, based on that information, then regulators can take action. I hope that answers your question. Also, I'm not an AI pessimist. I am
realist.
I'm against bad AI. That's the word I'm looking for.
Més preguntes? No? I have a question, Abeba, if I may. You haven't touched upon the idea of AGI systems being very close. 2025, 2026, we hear superintelligence around the corner and solving all our problems. And the cost of that, not only in terms of misinformation, but also in terms of pushing the boundaries of computing and more data harvesting. Could you tell us more about how you feel about that? Because we are a little bit puzzled that we might actually come across some sort of Robocop very soon.
Yeah. So because I only had an hour, I had to decide what to talk to you about and what to leave out. And the last thing I dropped from my slides was AGI. So this gives me an opportunity to really cover AGI. So I said at the beginning, AI is one of the most contested terms with no clear definition. And most of the time, it's just regression models that are taken as AI systems. AGI is even more contested. There is no definition. There is no agreement. Companies like OpenAI or DeepMind, their objective is to build AGI. And OpenAI is a relatively new company, but DeepMind have been doing it, and still they are not even close to AGI. They are not even close to having a better clarity around what AGI is. So there are so many layers to the question of AGI. Some of the latest state-of-the-art models, such as the GPT variants or Google's Gemini and so on, some argue that they show some sparks of AGI. But when you do, and if you kind of assume AGI is AI systems, computational systems that behave like humans, and you can then further operationalize that as dealing with, spatial reasoning, common sense reasoning, mathematical reasoning, and so on. And this is how researchers have broken down how to tackle the question of AGI. All the evaluations so far, all the thorough empirical evidence show that the best, the most, the largest and the state-of-the-art AI systems all perform very mediocre. Most of the time they fail. They don't even do as well as the benchmarks themselves. Again, I don't have time to show these actual papers, but there has been research tackling the question of, are these systems, are they reasoning? Are they understanding? Are they learning? Even though there is a heated debate, all the empirical evidence shows that they are statistical pattern matching rather than showing any ounce of reasoning, understanding, or not even consciousness. We are not even talking about that. So, on the actual scientific level, we are nowhere near systems that can be seen as reasoning or understanding or carrying out various tasks. But also on an ideological level, the concept of AGI really is dark and problematic because it leans on white supremacist ideas of what intelligence is. So basically, it comes down to trying to emulate or trying to imitate, ideas of eugenics or ideas of, this understanding of cognition that assumes the European white man is the epitome of intelligence, and any attempt to build of AGI is based on those kind of problematic ideas. So on all kinds of different levels, AGI is problematic and also scientifically unviable.
Doncs moltíssimes gràcies, Abeba. Un plaer tenir-te aquí avui explicant-nos tot això i més, tant per la presentació com per les teves respostes, i també a tots vosaltres per la vostra assistència. Abans que marxeu, un aplaudiment a l'Abeba, i abans que marxeu... Abans que marxeu...
Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Abeba. Abans que marxeu, convidaré un moment que pugi la Lídia Puigvert. Doncs sí, comences tu, així.
Començo jo i acabar l'Albert. Molt bé, doncs nosaltres volíem aprofitar el fet del seminari i el fet de la conferència que ens han fet, precisament pel tema que era també, presentar-vos aquest manifest que teniu aquí en pantalla, molts dels quals segurament tindreu informació, i simplement dir-vos un parell de coses. És a dir, ara parlàvem tot just de la importància de la ciutadania, de la gent, de les ONGs en el servei a la ciutadania. En aquest sentit, des de les aliances de diferents centres de recerca i des de diferents, Barcelona-Girona en aquest cas, portem a terme aquesta idea, aquesta proposta que prové d'un coneixement previ molt argumentat, amb moltes bases científiques al darrere durant molts anys, on estem treballant precisament amb la importància que té per una banda la intel·ligència artificial, perquè la té, és imprescindible en les nostres vides i ho serà, això és un fet, però també la importància que aquesta excel·lència científica que va unida a la intel·ligència artificial ha d'estar al servei de la ciutadania, ha d'estar al servei de les persones que la fem servir. I això implica la pluralitat, i aquí ho mostrem a través del feminisme i del pacifisme, és a dir, ha d'incorporar les veus de totes aquelles persones, de tots aquells col·lectius que tenen alguna cosa a dir, com ho fan en altres ciències i en altres disciplines. Hem de permetre que totes les persones puguin parlar i puguin decidir sobre com ha de ser aquesta intel·ligència artificial precisament perquè volem que sigui excel·lent, precisament perquè volem que sigui efectiva, precisament perquè volem que ens ajudin les nostres vides, però ho hem de fer també des d'una posició que per molt diferents que siguem, l'Albert i jo des de la recerca que fem, trobem un punt en comú i això és el que també us demanem a vosaltres i el que demanem en aquest manifest, la diversitat que existeix en els contextos científics, en les entitats, en els polítics i les polítiques, també plantejar aquesta posició conjunta des de les diferents disciplines, treballar per la no violència i per això és un manifest vinculat al feminisme i al pacifisme, és a dir, qualsevol postura és benvinguda sempre i quan busquem una intel·ligència artificial que estigui posicionada en contra de qualsevol ús d'aquesta intel·ligència cap a la violència. I això ens serveix per la nostra vida quotidiana i ha de servir per generar societats més democràtiques. Aquest és el plantejament de fons, des del qual diferents col·lectius, diferents persones científiques, diferents col·lectius vinculats a entitats socials estem unint-nos de forma molt interdisciplinària i plural per tal de forçar, i aquí li passaré la paraula a l'Albert, que és qui en sap més de tot això des de l'Observatori, per pressionar aquelles institucions a que millorin, no a que canviïn i siguin millors en el sentit ètic de la paraula, que és imprescindible, sinó perquè aquesta ètica ha de fer que sigui més i millor i més eficaç el treball científic que fan. I per això et passo.
Moltes gràcies, Lídia. Sí, no, aplaudiment, sí. Us encoratgem a saber-ne més, a contactar-nos, a sumar-vos-hi, a adherir-vos-hi, a preguntar i formar part d'això que justament hem escoltat avui a través d'aquesta presentació excel·lent de la professora Abeba Birhane. No es tracta només d'una qüestió de tecnologia, darrere de la tecnologia hi ha també ideologia, i per canviar algunes ideologies necessitem fer pinya, sumar-nos en moltes tasques, algunes molt socials, i sobretot pensar que des de l'acadèmia es poden fer moltes coses. I evidentment publicar en papers és una cosa de la nostra feina, però també sabem els acadèmics que hem d'anar més enllà de la publicació de papers. I això suposa no tan sols aquest tipus de seminaris, també suposa posar-nos d'acord amb aquests manifestos que al llarg del segle XX han estat molt importants. Han estat molt importants per fer coses fonamentals des del punt de vista de les energies nuclears, ja des del punt de vista del canvi climàtic, però també de la denúncia constant com l'ús indiscriminat d'algunes eines tecnològiques i especialment des del punt de vista de la vigilància. Per tant, això no és nou, ja ho sabeu molts de vosaltres, però hem de continuar així, hem de continuar i estem en un moment que diuen que és de disrupció. Nosaltres també som disruptius en aquest sentit, tant acadèmicament com socialment. Transformadors, diuen. Molt bé, perfecte. Doncs moltíssimes gràcies de nou per la vostra participació avui, assistència i adherir-vos. Fins aviat i moltes gràcies de nou.